Welcome to the Appleton Area Health Podcast. We're your home for exceptional service and trusted care, located in Appleton, Minnesota. Your community, your healthcare. I'm Matt Tollefson, the Development Manager at Appleton Area Health. I've been here for 3 years. I have no background in healthcare, and I feel like I'm learning something new every single day as I work with our patient care team from across the facility. I've learned a lot in the last 3 years, but there's still way more that I don't already know or fully understand. This season, Season 2, we're diving into Appleton Area Health's new initiative, the Whole Person Wellness Program. Each episode, we'll focus on one component of the program and what you, the listener, can do now. In this episode, we are focusing on nutrition and a few helpful hints that can make changing your diet just a bit easier. I'm joined by Lindsay, our registered dietitian, and Lynelle Dwyer, our Director of Food and Nutrition Services here. So let's dive in. Okay, and I'm joined by Lindsay now, registered dietitian, and we're going to just talk about food and nutrition and some of the basic choices that folks can make. And Lindsay's going to offer up some good advice, some good sound advice for everyone here. So, Lindsay, how are you today?
Good.
Good.
Yes.
How long have you been a registered dietitian?
Oh, I graduated in
Put you on the spot.
08, I think.
Right, okay.
So since 08, 09.
Okay. Sounds
yeah.
good. And what interests you about this work?
Initially I feel like it was more the cooking aspect of food. And then I knew I wanted to do a 4-year. So I instead of culinary, I kind of took the route of food and nutrition.
Okay.
So yeah, always liked to bake and cook, and
okay.
So
sounds good. All right, so we are, a little bit into the new year here, about a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks, New Year's resolution and goals and things like that, they set out, and one of the things is they want to lose weight, right?
Yeah.
And so again, we're a month and a half in. Maybe some people have gone by the wayside. Maybe some people are still going strong.
Yep.
For someone that wants to pick up and get started, where should they start? What's a good way?
So first, I think it's just good to be mindful of what maybe your habits are. So just kind of paying attention to what you eat daily. Maybe look at just different things you do in your day that maybe you don't even realize are adding to extra calories, extra sugar. I find that people come in and be like, they're driving through the coffee place every morning and it's just a habit.
Yep.
They don't even realize how all that coffee and added sugars can increase their weight, or they're going through and getting a breakfast sandwich, or they're just doing things that are just overall increasing maybe their weight or just adding to their health. So just try to be mindful and first of all, just get an idea of maybe where you might be falling short in some of those.
Sure. Okay, so a lot of times people have the big picture of losing weight.
Yep.
So what's a good piece of advice that you can give to people to help them reach their goals?
So along with the daily habits and just looking at daily habits, I think people, if they can write down a food journal, food beverage journal, and then just record everything they've eaten and drank in a week's time. And then that gives them a picture of maybe what they're eating, when they're eating it, how much they're eating of it. I think sometimes we forget that, if we just have a couple little mini candy bars in the afternoon, or some people are night snackers and then they don't realize how much that might be adding to their calories and stuff. So I think just starting with a food journal and just kind of analyzing where you feel like you could make some changes, and then planning ahead, I think, is a big one too. So a lot of times just making a weekly menu, on a Sunday, sit down, put the menu out, have some ideas of meals for the nighttime, and then go grocery shopping, get those foods in the house so you have it and you're more prepared. And taking a day to just even cut up your veggies.
Sure, that's smart. Save
brown
some time.
The meat. Right. Yeah, get all those things prepared so when you get home, it's more ready to go.
Yep.
Sometimes I've heard of people planning full meal. I mean, some people do freezer meal days where they'll make a bunch of freezer meals and then it's in the freezer and they can just pull it. Or I thought it was kind of interesting. One lady said she just does an extra meal a night. So
Okay.
One night she's making lasagna when everything's out and it's already a mess. She makes 2 pans. One pan goes in the freezer and one pan
that makes sense.
is for supper. So I think planning ahead with a weekly menu keeps you on track. When you don't have a plan, it's easier to go through the drive-through. It's easier to like want to grab something quick. But if you know that you have a plan and there's something ready for you at home in the crock pot or just ready to throw in the oven, I think it's a lot easier to keep with your goals.
Yeah, definitely. Those convenience foods can definitely be a trap. Like,
right. Yeah. Yep.
That's my pitfall. So yeah.
Yep.
All right. So there's lots of talk out there about, time restricted eating, fasting, is what's commonly called. There's eating 5 meals. People swear by that. There's the King's meal, eating 1 big meal only per day.
Right.
Where do you settle on all this?
Honestly, it's like each person's different. In the clinic, I sit with them and I just kind of figure out what their habits are. So like some people, it's not going to work to do 1 meal a day.
Yeah.
If you're going to just overeat on that 1 meal and eat all your calories in that 1 meal that you would have eaten throughout the day, it's probably better to separate it out.
Sure.
And choose healthy options throughout the day. But also I think we forget about snacks sometimes. Like not everybody needs a snack, but sometimes people will come and tell me that they eat a lot of food at lunch because maybe they've skipped breakfast, they've skipped their snack, and now they're starving at lunch and they don't want anything healthy. They just want something quick and tasty and a lot of it. And so then they end up kind of not aligning with what they wanted to do. So I think that each person, it really varies. Some people have success with the fasting, like maybe they stop eating at 6 at night and don't eat till lunch the next day, but they're able to control what they eat and they're able to control how much they eat. But I think it just depends on each person, but sometimes small, more frequent is better.
Okay.
I think it's easier to keep yourself satisfied and not overeat when you've eaten something and just kind of keep something in your stomach so you don't get super hungry.
Any snack ideas that you'd recommend to folks? But
right.
It just depend on everyone's palate kind of.
Yeah, I mean it does depend on that, but something with protein, something with fiber, and maybe some carb, like you could have a cheese stick with some nuts, or you could have an apple with peanut butter, some crackers and cheese, like some people like trail mix. Something that gives you a protein and some fiber, and because that's going to help you feel fuller and satisfied.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
What about pitfalls that people should watch out for?
Yeah. So the one I think that people forget about is beverages.
Okay.
They can really add a lot of added sugars to our intakes. We give them to our kids a lot and sometimes don't realize how much sugar they're getting. And it's just one of those things that if you're trying to lose weight, lessening sugar is important.
Okay.
So I have some visuals of different beverages. I just tried to find common ones that we drink ourselves. So like this is just essentially a 20-ounce bottle of Mountain Dew.
Oh my goodness.
It could be a 20-ounce bottle of any regular pop essentially, but there's 77 grams of sugar, which is equivalent to 18 teaspoons. So that's like triple what we should have or more, so that's just in one bottle. If we're drinking more than one, that's a lot more. So this is a Gatorade, just a regular Gatorade. I know a lot of people think that we need the electrolytes, and sometimes that is important if we're really working out and stuff. But, if kids are slurping on these all day long or ourselves, this is just one Gatorade. So that's
just the 20 ounce or 2
teaspoons of sugar. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just another one that can really add to a lot of added sugars. I see people drink those cold coffee drinks a lot, and this is just one 13-ounce Starbucks Frappuccino. And so that's 46 grams of sugar, 11 teaspoons. So when we're thinking less sugar is best, and we already get sugars in our foods, just these can really add a lot more. This is a juice, apple juice. So this is 100% juice. So it is a natural sugar, which is different. I mean, natural sugar is better than added sugar. But somebody that's diabetic or wants to lose weight, cutting out juices could be a big thing. So this is just 35 grams of sugar. And then this is a big one too. I think people forget that
Yeah.
sweetened teas also have sugar. And so this is just the 18 ounce of the pure leaf sweet tea, and that's 10 teaspoons of sugar. So
Crazy.
I think sugar is one of those things that sneaks up, and especially in beverages, because some people think I'm drinking it, I'm not eating it, it's not really adding anything.
Yep.
So you can always look at the nutrition facts. I'd say obviously less is best. So under the total carbs on your nutrition facts, it'll say added sugars. And I mean, you want that number to be as low as possible.
And in these drinks, there's no protein, no fiber, like you've talked about.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's just pretty much empty calories, empty sugar. Yep.
Okay.
So
crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
These visuals always like just kind of blow my mind. Just on, like I know how much sugar you put in like a batch of cookies or whatever, and versus like just seeing like a drink, like a one-time fizzy.
Yeah.
So okay, thanks for bringing those.
Yeah.
All right. So one piece of advice that I've heard in the past is when folks do go grocery shopping, they should kind of stick to the perimeter of the grocery store and avoid the aisles if possible.
Right.
Why is that good advice?
So typically the aisles, the inside has a lot of the processed, prepackaged foods that we want less of. So the outer usually has, more of your produce, your meats, like your dairies. Of course, sometimes the frozen section has some of the processed foods, but typically they're going to be like your fresh foods.
Okay.
And so the more fresh you can get, the best. Frozen foods, like, there are frozen foods that are okay too, like your frozen fruits and your frozen vegetables. Frozen meats are okay. Sure. I think thinking of the outer is kind of like your fresh, a little bit better for you. Inside, you're going to get more of the processed. And so if you can stick more to the outer, that's better.
Yep.
Obviously, we all eat processed foods to an extent.
Yep.
But if you can just find one that has less ingredients, so the less is best. I mean, ingredients you can pronounce.
There you go.
Just like so just try to find ones that are just have a fewer ingredients.
Going back just a little bit, you had mentioned like a food journal. Do you have an app in mind, or do you actually want notebook or Excel, or what are you thinking? Like what's a good tool for someone to use?
I mean, I usually just tell people to write it in a notebook.
Okay.
I'm sure there's a lot of apps out there, and you can choose one that kind of fits your style, like as far as if it's easier to just put it in the notes sections of your phone or but I kind of just tell people, like, as far as just looking at what they're eating, you could just do pen and paper.
Sure. Yeah, there's probably value in like actually having to write it down and like thinking about, okay, am I hungry at this point, or whatever it may be. So
and I think there's like accountability to it. Like if you have to write it down, sometimes you don't eat it because you're like,
sure,
I am accountable for writing this down now. And so sometimes it's a good tool for that too.
Okay. Awesome. So if someone would like to make an appointment with you, how would they do that? And then what do you go over with them, like in an initial meeting?
So they can always talk with their primary that can send a referral.
Okay.
Or and their primary might just have them schedule up front here at Appleton. They can just go and talk to one of their receptionists and they'll get them in my schedule.
Okay.
And then the initial appointments, kind of whatever their need is. So if it's, I see people for a variety of things like diabetes and weight gain, weight loss, just different things. So we usually just sit down and kind of see what they're wanting or what their need is. And then we kind of do exactly what I say. I kind of go through like their typical habits, typical eating patterns. And then just try to meet their needs. So.
Okay. I'm joined now by Lynelle Dwyer, our Director of Food and Nutrition Services here at Appleton Area Health. Lynelle, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Matt.
Good. So this is your second time on the podcast.
Yes.
You are our second two-time guest, so welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. And so I'm wearing red today. February is Heart Month.
Correct.
Nationally, internationally, I'm not sure. Okay. So let's talk about that a little bit. What are some tips that you have for our listeners and viewers who are looking to practice a heart healthy diet?
So some quick tips for a heart healthy diet would be, firstly, you want to decrease sodium intake. decrease saturated fat, trans fat, limit cholesterol. Those are some big ones right away. Increasing fiber intake, include more raw fruits and vegetables, whole grains into your diet. Increasing fiber helps clear out your pipes in your bloodstream. Portion control is a big thing too, not overeating at meals. And then just a couple other tips that aren't entirely dietary related would be to use alcohol in moderation and stop using tobacco products, especially smoking. And then, of course, with any heart healthy or just nutrition in general, would be to increase exercise. Aim for exercising at least 30 minutes a day.
Okay. So you mentioned sodium, and in our last segment, you don't know this, but we talked with Lindsay about when you go into a grocery store and shop, they always suggest sticking around the perimeter, right, for those fresh.
Yep, the fresh vegetables.
And, Yep. Okay. So that's one practice right there that you can already take up. So, all right. Another thing that I struggle with, I know others struggle with, is portion control.
Okay.
Any tips, tricks, or advice on that?
Yeah, something that I tend to work with people on is using your hand.
Okay.
It's a good thing you always have your hand with you.
Yes.
For portion control. So there's different guidelines for different food items as to how much you're supposed to eat at a meal.
Okay.
Typically, it's for meat, the palm of your hand is about 3 ounces roughly. The front of your fist would be 4 ounces, which is a half a cup. That you would use for cooked fruits, vegetables, and your starches.
Okay.
Your full fist would be what you want to use for raw vegetables, raw fruits. That is the equivalent to about a cup.
Okay.
This would also be about what you would want to have for a glass of milk with your meals if you're a milk drinker.
Okay.
Some other things would be your thumb. The tip of your thumb would be a teaspoon.
Okay.
Full thumb is a tablespoon. These would be things for like oils, margarines, if you're buttering your toast or, adding oils, things like that. You use the tip.
Okay.
Thumb would be like your salad dressings, things like that, mayo.
Sure.
That's one of the biggest things. People get a nice big salad and then we add like a quarter of a cup or a half a cup of dressing on top, which kind of defeats the purpose of having that good fresh vegetable salad.
Yeah.
And then the cup of your hand would be about 4 ounces, which would be like a snack or a small serving if you're reducing your carbs.
Sure.
2 ounces would be a serving size. So, or like a snack of like almonds or something like that would be the cup of your hand. Okay. So those are just some small, quick little guidelines of portion sizes.
Okay. So that's pretty easy. I'm going to record this portion.
Just that.
And have that. Okay. Lynelle said this. Easy enough there. All right. Maybe do a reel or something like that.
Yeah, just have it going.
Yeah. There we go. What about meal planning and meal prep? Again, talked with Lindsay a little bit about it. But as someone, you've worked in the kitchen for as long as a long time. Yep. I didn't want to say it.
More than what I want to say.
But what advice can you offer for those that maybe aren't as experienced in the kitchen?
So some just basic tips for meal prep. It starts actually way before you even have the food. Is establish your nutrition goals, your dietary goals. Having a clear direction helps you promote and get excited for what you want to do. The next thing you do is create a list of recipes you might want to try, try and find healthy recipes, but also that are exciting, that are going to keep your attention. After you do those recipes, plan out your meals for the week, try to stick to that, plan around your schedules. So easy. If we don't have this done, come home, quick grab junk and just quick eat it before you go on to your next event, especially if you have busy children that you're chasing around. And then after you plan out your meals for the week, break down into an ingredient list before you go to the grocery store and stick to your list. That's the most important thing. We get sidetracked so often, spend more money on food that we don't need and have just for snacks. So try to stick to your list. And then once you actually get to the meal prep part, start the meal prep by washing, cutting your vegetables, get all that done, get everything chopped, organized, And then utilize batch cooking to save time. You can, if you're doing like roasting vegetables, use a big pan and do several vegetables at the same time in the
That
oven.
makes sense.
Or cooking all of your grains if you're doing rice or quinoa or something like that. Get all your water boiling and do it all at the same time because they all have similar cooking times.
Okay.
And while that's going, you can be working on other things. Same with protein, do multiple things, season them differently
Sure.
compared to what's on. And then a part that most people don't think about too is portion it out while you're doing it. But storing and reheating safely is a huge piece that I would put in with my experience. Reheating things should be up to 165 degrees to kill any bacteria that might grow.
Sure.
So just some tips for that. If you're freezing, make sure and date and label what you're putting in the freezer because things get lost.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. Those are all good tips. So,
Okay.
yeah. All right. So shifting gears a little bit to your job here at the care center, for those that might be interested, what are some of our residents' favorite meals?
I would honestly say some of the favorite meals here are just meat, potato, vegetable meals.
Sure.
With the generation. But something they get really excited for is our homemade pizza night that we do once a month. And then Taco Tuesdays. We have Taco Tuesday as one of the options every Tuesday. And that's probably one of the things that really gets them excited or that they enjoy the most.
Yeah. That always cracks me up, a bunch of Norwegians and Germans and Scandinavians and stuff. So
Taco Tuesday and pizza.
Yeah. We just had, our coronation for Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And I think there was 3 or 4 that said pizza was their favorite food too.
They did.
So,
Yep, they did. Yeah, it's a fun night when we do the homemade pizzas, and it's an even bigger treat when we order in pizza from outside.
Yeah. And I know, you do certain things, right? Like with resident council and things like that. Do you get some suggestions sometimes on different foods to try or things like that?
Yep. Resident council is held monthly, both here and at the assisted living. We call it Table Talk up there. Always ask for suggestions. What are you hungry for? Do you have a recipe you want to bring in? Sometimes I have takers, sometimes I don't, but we've had families bring in recipes and we've made it.
Cool.
I tweak the recipe for cooking for this many people, make it for them. And I usually try to celebrate, this is Matt's recipe for, whatever it might be. And then we like to do different holiday meals or special event meals. And I always like to include their suggestions or preferences in that. Like coming up, at the next resident council, we'll be planning for St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
And that's usually a toss up between an Irish stew or a Guinness stew or the traditional corned beef and cabbage meal. And some of them are just like, what's Irish food?
Yeah, right.
So some don't. It just depends on what's suggested, but we do try to do fun things like that. Okay,
really cool. All right. So any final words of wisdom or advice for our viewers and listeners?
Start slow when you do. Don't try and go gung-ho right away. Make small steps to make it more sustainable in your life.
Sure. All right. Well, thanks, Lynelle, for your time.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks for checking out the Appleton Area Health Podcast. Thank you also to Lynelle and Lindsay for appearing on today's episode. The video stream is available on Facebook, and the audio versions will be available wherever you get your podcasts. To schedule an appointment, call our clinic at 320-289-1580. As we hope to spread this useful information, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.